In this segment, we're going to take a look inside the steamship industry, one of the most volatile and interesting industries that you'll ever see. So first of all, here's a listing of the top ocean line carriers. You have Maersk and MSC and CMA, CGM, Costco, and so forth. You can see that they handle 1.5 to 3 million TEUs a year. You can see how many ships they have in their fleet and how many of those are owned by the company, how many are chartered. There's usually more chartered than owned. Okay, and you can also see how many they have ordered. So Maersk has 12% of their fleet is the size of their order book and so forth, right? So the top ocean carriers, there's 50 to 75 of them. A few of the carriers handle most of the freight, as in many industries. They form two types of groups. One group is called a conference. These are people who operate in the same area. They will collude together on rates and capacity to try to manage their rates. This is like a cartel operates. It's frowned upon by many places, many governments. The other thing they form is alliances to cooperate on capacity by lane. So if you think about those strings of ships that go around the world, those strings may be consisting of ships from different carriers that are cooperating with each other along the same string as part of an alliance. So you may book your freight on Company A thinking that your container is actually going to go on a ship from Company A, and in fact it goes on a ship from Company B because it's part of the same alliance, and it's invisible to you. I mentioned before that freight rates are very different in different directions. Here's a leg from China to Los Angeles. If you go towards the United States, it's very expensive. Lots of freight is moving in this direction. Very expensive. If you want to come back the other way, very cheap. They're trying to get the empty containers back to where they belong. This is a backhaul. So it's a very cheap rate. They're trying to attract freight to fill up those empty containers that are coming back to China. And you can look around the world in lots of different directions and see the difference in price along different lanes here. Now, one thing that happens in the world in lots of industries is volume discount pricing. The more you buy, the cheaper it is per unit. And so imagine that this is the price to go from China to the United States. If you only buy 2 or 3 containers to go, you may pay $2,000 a piece. If you're a guy that has 300 containers, you'll pay only $700. Huge difference in price for because of the volume discount. And this happens in lots of industries. Imagine you're taking your church group, all the kids, to a ball game. You don't pay the same price for everybody because you get a group discount. Same idea. Okay, but anytime you have a cost structure like this, it is begging for a middleman to get involved here. And so what does a middleman do? A middleman, he gathers together all these little guys, the people who are going to pay $2,000 a container, and he says to them, hey, don't book your shipment with the carrier directly. Book it through me. And what he does is he aggregates them all together. So now he's buying a lot of container space at the low rate, let's say $700. You would have paid $2,000, but he's only going to charge you $1,500. So there's a big savings for you. You're saving $500 per container, and he's making a profit of $800 per container. So it's kind of a win-win between the consolidator and the customer in that case. Right? Now, this happens in transportation, various places, truckload brokerage, companies like C.H. Robinson and Coyote. Besides offering a lot of consulting services, they also take advantage of this kind of a volume discount. Air freight forwarders do this, and NVOCCs. NVOCC is a person who is a non-vessel operating, so they don't have any ships, non-vessel operating common carrier. Kind of an interesting phrase there. So you have companies like Expeditors and UTI and so forth that are NVOCCs. But it's a win-win. You can save you a lot of money if you use a consolidator in some circumstances. Now, let's put NVOCCs in perspective. The top one handles 144,000 units a year. Compare that to the top steamship company, 2.6 million. Compare that to the top port, 35 million. So they're a relatively small player in the marketplace. An interesting player, though. Now let's talk about the bullwhip effect. The ocean industry is the poster child for the bullwhip effect. The world economy works on cycles. About every 7 years, the stock market crashes, and so you have customer demand is going up and down, right? And the steamship companies are racing to catch up here, and then they overshoot, and customer demand is now going down, but now they have too much capacity, and so they're trying to reduce as fast as they can, but they overshoot, and now they don't have enough capacity. And so you have this very interesting phenomenon in this zone between these two lines. You have too little capacity, and the companies are adding ships as fast as they can. But because there's too little capacity, they can charge really high rates. They can charge very high rates. But the service is very, very poor because they don't have enough capacity. People get left sitting on the dock instead of getting put on the ship, and the carriers make a lot of money. So very interesting phenomenon that goes on here. Now, as soon as you cross this point, the opposite happens. You've got too much capacity. Companies are removing ships as fast as they can, slowing them down, sending them home the long way. Rates are collapsing. The service is very good. Everybody wants your business, and carriers lose a ton of money. And then it repeats itself and repeats itself and on and on. Okay? So this is a picture of a chart from American Shipper magazine. And what you have here is you have the carriers are listed over here, and here's how much money or profit each one of them made in 2007, 8, all the way to 2012. They made a ton of money in 2007. Life was beautiful, $5 billion. 2008 started to get a little bit shaky. 2009, the stock market had crashed. Customer demand was falling as fast as it could. They had way too much capacity. They were losing lots of money. They lost $11 billion. Okay. But they took a lot of capacity out of the system. The world economy turned around. By 2010, the world economy was going up. They did not have enough capacity. They had taken out too much. And because they did not have enough capacity, rates were very high. They made a ton of money. So they lost $11 billion in 2009. They made $10 billion in 2010. But, of course, they added capacity. They overshot. And now 2011, it slows down again. Now they lost $6 billion, right? So what an industry. Make $5 billion, lose $11 billion. Make $10 billion, lose $6 billion, and so forth. And if I go one more step to 2014, again, good year. I made a lot of money, right? So this industry goes up and down and up and down. A lot of companies are on the verge of bankruptcy a lot of the time. So let's talk a little bit about the Altman Z-score. This is one of many measures. This is pretty. I like this one. It's a measure of the company's vulnerability to bankruptcy. If it's a publicly traded company, you can go to their income statement and balance sheet, and you can pick off these different numbers, working capital, total assets, and so forth. And you make these ratios, T1 through T5. You put them into this little equation, Z equals 1.2 times T1, etc. across here. You press the button, you get a value for Z. If Z is less than 1.81, you are in the distress zone. It says you're about to go bankrupt. If you're 1.81 to 2.99, you're in the middle, in the gray zone. And of course, if you're above 2.99, you're in the safe zone. And the point was that by the end of 2011, 12 of the top 15 ocean liners were in the distress zone. And so this is sort of what it looked like. Here's Altman Z-score. Here's the 1.81 magic number. You can see how many years the industry as a whole was in the distress zone.